And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. You're tuned in to Tapped Out. Hosted by Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine. Only on the BetQL Network.
And a good Saturday evening. We appreciate you checking us out here on Tapped Out on the BetQL Network with producer Jake Noaker and my co-host, damn, those eyes are beautiful. That's Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. And once again, Saturday night is fight night, both inside the octagon and inside the ring. As always, Canelo Alvarez fights the weekend of Cinco de Mayo. His opponent tonight, Jaime Munguia, undefeated, 43 fights, 34 knockouts, comes in as a big underdog in the all-Mexican matchup. Right now at BetMGM, you can get Munguia at about 4-1. Canelo's a 6-1 favorite. Let's just go ahead and start right there before we get into all the shenanigans. Do those odds look a little bit off to you? No way Canelo should be that big of a favorite.
You know, the way boxing's going lately, Sean, it's probably in the realm of why not just throw a little something on Jaime Munguia, the way it's been going with upsets after upsets and overwhelming. You know, we talk about this, you know, very rare to see this in UFC odds. You'll see these in boxing odds up and down all the time. And so, you know, you look back at it last week, a Ryan Garcia. Hey, is it worth throwing something on him? Yeah, why not? I mean, it's what's the harm in just throwing a little sprinkle if he catches him with something? And that's kind of how you would look up and down this entire card is you just have like overwhelming favorites all over the place, guys who are minus 1,200, minus 1,300, minus 1,300. So Canelo and Jaime Munguia is the closest fight on the card relatively. And I think it's probably because people are just like, yeah, Jaime Munguia could do, he's not a bum. I mean, he's a offensive, come forward, young fighter, little size advantage. I think everybody's big question with him is like, how do you handle the lights? We've seen guys at this weight class. There's a couple things you got to check into. One, this is Canelo's sweet spot. This is his undisputed championship weight class. So he's very good at 168. And you know, a lot of these guys that he's gotten in there with, they've gotten a little shell shocked. And so if there's not a big boxing skills advantage and there's not a size advantage, you know, there's a reason why Jaime Munguia was probably picked, but I don't think he has no shot. I think we definitely have to have questions about Canelo Alvarez, even with his last performance against Charlo, and be like, all right, when does the tread start wearing off? 65 pro fights.
That's a lot. And I think the answer is already, in my opinion. Dimitri Bivol pieced him up not that long ago. Do you think that anything could be taken away from that fight from the other side and maybe they can try to emulate what Bivol did? Because it's not like he just beat him that night. He pieced him apart, in my opinion. I know the cards were close. I didn't see it that close.
Yeah, I think that it'd probably be prudent to, you know, to fight behind your jab. But I think that, you know, one of the reasons why out of all the options, the Charlos or the Benavidez's or the Terrence Crawfords, why they picked Munguia is because Munguia likes to mix it up. He likes to go in there. He doesn't necessarily like to fight controlled like a Dimitri Bivol does. So styles make fights. But, you know, I think he's got a very smart trainer behind him. This is Munguia's second fight under Freddie Roach. If you want to do what we typically call on this show MMA math, his last one's coming off a guy, John Ryder, really solid fighter who went the distance with Canelo. And he was Munguia was able to finish him off with his first fight with Freddie Roach. So, you know, there's some things there that I would be like, at 4-1 money, would I, you know, throw something small on it? Yeah, I don't think it's crazy because there's not much value in taking Canelo on the money line.
Well, I know that background. That tells me you're doing the show from New York, and Las Vegas, Nevada. So that tells me you'll be at the fight. Where's your money going? Let me guess before you tell me. You've been boring recently. Canelo by decision.
Yeah, I actually am going to go Canelo by knockout in this
knockout.
one. Okay,
there we go.
Yeah, I'm going to go Canelo by knockout. I think not because I feel challenged by you or anything like that, but no, I think that the thing that I wonder with Canelo is, you know, he looked in really good shape his last fight around against Charlo. I thought that I watched that fight on the way to Vegas, and he knocked him down once. I do like this weight class for Canelo. I don't like this nonsense of him going to 175 anymore. And I just think that he knows Munguia is going to probably try and, you know, come after him a little bit. I think Munguia could wear down a little bit, and I think this could be like a late stoppage for Canelo, like rounds like 7, 8 in that area. I would start looking towards, okay, is he going to wear him down and maybe get stopped?
I think it gets into the deep waters, like you said. I actually agree with you, which is something I generally don't like doing. I think Canelo ends up knocking him out. Just knowing that there's a lot of people like me that are questioning where he is at this point, kind of the latter ages of his career. Go out there, be impressive, keep your belts, and then move on. And then maybe, the talk for Terrence Crawford gets hotter.
Yeah, and hopefully, him or David Benavidez. And,
Sure.
he's been doing a ton of press, and, first it's been, mostly the mix up with his former promoter. But as far as that's concerned, he's not ruling out the Benavidez fight. I just think that he wants a crazy bag, probably from, the Sultans over at Saudi Arabia. I think that they want a ton of dough. But as far as the method odds for this one tonight, you have Canelo by decision. It's a little bit more bearable at -105. Him by TKO KO is plus 190. Munguia by decision is plus 750, and Munguia to get the KO. If you do like to get a little freaky with the way things have been, it's at 9-1 at plus 900.
Oh, I like to get freaky, especially on a Saturday night. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine here on the BetQL network. I got freaky a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking, maybe you sprinkle a little bit on Ryan Garcia. Maybe it goes the distance. Maybe he wins, and that paid a lot. 16-1 odds on that. Speaking of Ryan Garcia, I try to like this guy, right? Like the Cobra bag thing, and he's good looking. He's the new YouTube era, but he's just. I'm done with him. I'm off Ryan Garcia. First of all, dude, you come in missing weight, which there's not that many rules before a fight, whether it's UFC, there's only a couple. Don't put stuff in your body you're not supposed to. And there's a certain weight you're supposed to be. And this guy just threw both those things right down the drain. Like he knew he was going to be overweight. It's not like Charles Oliveira where he weighed in by 0.2 over. This was 3 pounds over. All right, bro. And then today, or a couple of days ago, turns out that he took some sort of whatever. And of course, he comes out and says he didn't take it. People are, dude, I mean, come on. Like the disrespect. Now I sound like my father, but the disrespect that Ryan Garcia is just thrown right in the face of boxing is kind of making me sick. And also, to be fair, makes me sick that Devin Haney's camp has come out and said they want a no decision. You lost the fight. Like you took the fight, you lost the fight. So I disagree with that also. But Ryan Garcia is a bum, dude.
It's possible that it does get overturned. We've seen that before we've seen it before for state commissions doing that for weed. I mean, like it's possible they go back and they overturn it. Does it mean anything for the money? Does it mean anything for what we all saw with our eyeballs? No, probably not. Yeah, or for our bets.
They don't get their money back.
They don't get their money back. The tickets are cash. Ryan Garcia already took a casino for 12 mil because he bet on himself. I'm with you. Like it's one of these things you wonder this entire lead up. All right, is this trolling? Is this legit? Should we be concerned about Ryan Garcia? And now you get this news as well. You want to kind of wait until you get like the more amounts and stuff because we've seen in the UFC before. I think it's interesting because we've seen more guys vindicated in the UFC because the punishments are harsher. And we could go and we've heard about John Jones and pulsating picograms and all this type of stuff and things the way they blend in and blend out. The thing with Ryan Garcia is he just makes for a horrendous person to give the benefit of the doubt to.
Right.
You couldn't find a guy like I would want less to be like, oh yeah, I trust him. He's definitely on the level there. So strangely enough, though, it is interesting watching this because Ryan is going to be very aggressive as he has been all week on social media about this. And he's going to have backers too, because we live in a world that does, I guess, bend towards the conspiracy a little bit more. And so he puts out these photos with him, with Devin Haney and Victor Conte of the, for those who know, of Balco fame with Barry Bonds, but he's the criminal who's now catching the criminals. Like that's what he does now. And, so he's, Ryan Garcia is very good. He's already like put the conspiracy slideshows together. So I think Ryan Garcia in a lot of ways is going to have a lot of people still on his side after all this and think that Devin Haney's just being a sore loser and this is a conspiracy to smear my name. which is pretty wild because I feel like in most cases in boxing, think to Canelo, even Canelo taking the horse meat back in the day, that really had a bite on him, and Gennady Golovkin did not let him forget about it. Yeah, he moved on and still here all week in Vegas, and you see the pomp and circumstances, but man, at the time, people were sounding alarm bells that Canelo was a cheat.
Don't knock it till you've tried it. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine here on the BetQL network. From a total schmuck in Ryan Garcia to a guy that I have a man crush on, Tom Aspinall. It looks like he might have a fight coming up against Alex Pereira. So Pereira says he has a fight coming up, kind of cryptic with the message. I don't know. Maybe it's Yuri. Maybe it's Aspinall. It looks like he wants to be eventually not just a champ, a champ. Could you see Pereira all the way at heavyweight fighting our boy Aspinall?
Yeah, I mean, like I could. I think if I'm not usually a fan of guys jumping, but 205 is a whack class, like it's just he's already done what he's had to do. He's won the belt. He beat the guy who had the belt. So what else does he really have to do? He's beating the two top guys we really like watching. If you told me right now, hey, who would you spend your money? What would you spend your money on? You have to spend this $80 on a pay-per-view tonight. Would you spend it on Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall, or would you spend it on Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev?
Right.
I think you know what my answer is.
I know what your answer is, but what if I invited you over to the crib and I was like, I'll pay for the fight, but you got to put the $80 down on either Tom Aspinall or on Alex Pereira. I'll give you even money since we don't know what the odds are right now. Which side you playing? I'm on the Aspinall side.
Oh, man, that's
he's
a good question.
Like usually against Pereira, it's like, yeah, he's fast too. For a heavyweight, this dude moves like a lightweight. He's got fists. You could say, well, he's got these fists of steel. And then I'm like, well, yeah, so does Alex Pereira. Dude, that would be. Can you imagine what those guys would look like in the octagon?
Oh man, it's like two superheroes. And to be honest with you, like it's good for Aspinall because I do feel like he was in already a bit of a tough pinch at heavyweight because I don't know what's going to go on with the John Jones Stipe situation. So you need a little bit of this. All right, well, what's the next chapter from him? He's already knocked out the scariest guy there is in Pavlovich. So now you're in this position like, well, what if you take on the 205 guy coming on up? I think it'd be great. I think I'd lean Aspinall. Just because he's well-rounded. He is fast. If it does, I'd be curious to see if he tries to get Pereira to the ground. We don't really see anybody try to do that. Would he mess around? And then you got to worry about he's had some leg issues before with Pereira trying to attack that leg. And could that be an issue that he has to deal with as well? But man, it's one of the juicier matchups the sport can make right now.
And you know what it might do? Right now, John Jones has basically said, for all intents and purposes, I'm not fighting Tom Aspinall because I think he knows how good Tom Aspinall is, how dangerous he is, and right now, how not big of a name as far as, establish it. Like, what's the point if you're John Jones? Why would you erase your GOAT and zero and all those things, technically, if we're going to lose to Tom Aspinall? But if Tom Aspinall goes out there and beats Alex Pereira, now Aspinall's kind of got a name, right? Now It's like, okay, he's the boogeyman. He's the scary guy, especially as a heavyweight. All right, John Jones, you came back, took out Cyril Gahn. You've been out the game now for a minute, dude. Come back and fight Aspinall. I wonder if that would be enough to get him going. Speaking of coming back, Charles Oliveira, it's looking like a July return for DuBronx. Ilia Topuria has been in the news a lot, right? He's hot. He's the champ. He's unbeaten. He's obviously got the wins versus Volk and Emmett and Bryce Mitchell. I guess just the next thing for him is Max, right?
I mean, that's the thing that's weird about it. We don't seem to really know what's up with Topuria. There were all these claims on Rogan's podcast because Max sat down with Joe Rogan and was talking about there was rumors that he had turned down Alexander Volkanovski, to which Topuria came out and denied that he had turned down anything. But I think one thing with Volk we're all wondering about is hey, I think it'd be great for Alexander Volkanovski to take a little bit of time. Yeah, maybe the odd scenario can come and he could fight Max Holloway again because that would, be weird because he'd already got the wins. But probably the only time it's going to make sense for them to fight again would be Alex trying to get his belt back. So look, Max Holloway right now is in my mind, outside of Connor, he is the golden goose right now in the sport after that knockout. he really, could probably vault the line, even if he wanted to. Like, if you told me, I would, never take away a Dustin Poirier title defense, or title shot. But even if you said, nah, never mind, Dustin, what you did to Benoit Saint Denis, Holloway's was cooler. He gets in there. Thankfully, that's not going to happen. But I just think that, Topuria is in this spot right now. I think that they're all learning that you win the belt, and everybody kind of wants to get in there and call the shots immediately and do this and do that. And I'm just, hey, why don't we just go, and your legacy is going to become your legacy. I think too many guys are like, I have all these grand ideas, and that stuff just has to come natural. It really does. Like, whether it be Sugar Sean wanted to box Ryan Garcia, or, whether it be Islam wanted to go up to 170 because he doesn't feel like he has anything to do at 155. I'm like, you've been the champion for 3 seconds. What do you mean?
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Welcome back into the show. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. That there is Brendan Tobin, and he's no longer just good enough for me, so I need to welcome on somebody that is. Andrew Gombas joins us. You can follow him at Bets and Picks MMA. Let's talk some MMA, Andrew. We were talking a little bit, very briefly, last week, and I believe that we brought up the Chandler McGregor fight, which is official. BT and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. I just don't see this one going that long. Like, Conor McGregor's never been good, anything past, I'd say, the second round, really. If McGregor wins, it has to be in the first couple of rounds, right?
Yeah, the one time he had to dig deep was in a 5-rounder against Nate Diaz, but other than that, it's been mostly quick fights. The first Poirier fight was done in a round. The Jose Aldo fight was obviously done in 13 seconds. Eddie Alvarez, 2 rounds, just to name a few. Even, when he lost to Dustin Poirier, the second or He lost to Dustin the first time. It was in the second round. So to your point, he knows he doesn't get paid by the hour, always in exciting fights. And Michael Chandler is not much different. He's probably the perfect dance partner to meet him in the center and see who's going to hold up longer.
Andrew, coming up, UFC 301, not, in the ilk of the other cards. I actually feel like I've been a little bit like boxing centric this week because I've been out in Vegas for the Canelo fight, but I feel like on the outskirts of this, I'm seeing a lot of like Steve Erceg. Hey, this is why you guys should be excited to see him against Pantoja. He is a dog in the swing. So like what are the things about the championship fight that excites you? How you betting it? What are the most intriguing things about the matchup?
Yeah, well, it's an intriguing matchup in my eyes because we don't fully know what Ursag is yet. A lot of guys don't get a title fight in their fourth fight in the organization. And obviously Pantoja is a big step up from anything he's ever faced before. Like I said, Ursag, 3 fights in the UFC, he's 3-0. But the three people he's fought have a combined 10-11 UFC record, whereas Pantoja has fought and beaten like the killers of the killers. He's beaten Moreno 3 times, he's beaten Royval twice. And this is just, a new test for him because obviously, he's faced a lot of the toughest that the division has to offer. And he's had mostly good results. I think off the top of my head, he's 11-3 in the UFC, which is phenomenal given the strength of schedule he's faced. Obviously, there's a couple things on the Urseg side that he has going for him. He's 7 years younger. He's bigger. Urseg's very big for a flyweight. He's a good striker. We saw in his last fight that he has power, like serious power in his hands. He seems to be a capable grappler, but Pantoja is one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the UFC, let alone just the 125-pound division. And Pantoja never been finished. He's a dog. We've seen him dig deep in fights before. I don't think we've necessarily seen Ursag have to dig deep late in a fight, especially in a main event title fight, 5 rounds. So I got to give those advantages to Pantoja. I am expecting him to get it done and retain his belt.
What if my BetMGM account is not that big and I'm trying to hit an underdog at UFC 301? I'm looking at Potiera at 5-1, Lionheart Anthony Smith 4-1, Bearju Paul Craig at plus 450. If you got to play an underdog, which one are you going with?
Yeah, it's not a sexy pick, but I think William Gomis should be the favorite. And the line's has moved some throughout the week in his favor, but I do think he should be the favorite here. In my opinion, he's more skilled. He's much better defensively. He has 3 actual UFC wins, whereas Gene Silva, fought on the Contender Series and had a very close fight, got in the UFC, fought someone who's not in the UFC anymore. I think Gomes has the leg kick upside. Like I said, I think he's better defensively. I just all around think he has a better process. And Silva is powerful, but like I said, Gomes is just so hard to hit. I think he should be the favorite here. And he did mention a few big underdogs. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Anthony Smith, just because Anthony Smith, he's well-rounded. He's fought a who's who of the division. And, he probably is past it a little bit, but I think that's being more than accounted for, more than baked into the line already. Just a year or two ago, Vitor Petrino was a pick'em with Anton Turkalj, who, is no longer with the UFC. And yeah, it's a step up for Petrino, and I'm not suggesting for you that Smith's going to win, but I do think the line's probably wide.
There's been an interesting back and forth this week, Andrew, with Alex Bejeda, where, there's been some flirtation that maybe he's going to go up to heavyweight. People are even thinking there's going to be like a Royal Rumble situation where he was going to come in the midst of 301. Then he says this week, maybe I'll focus at 205. Then John Jones is like now putting out the idea, maybe fighting Tom Aspinall or Bejeda at some point. What do you think? Bejeda has that monster knockout at 300, maybe got a little overshadowed by Holloway, but he's obviously, got options just like Max Holloway does. What would you like to see for Alex Bejeda's next challenge?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because to your point, he has so many options. He could rematch Yuri. He could go up to heavyweight. He could look to fight Aspinall. He could look to fight John Jones. He could potentially do another Adesanya fight, but this time at 205. For me, I'm interested in the idea of someone challenging for a third belt. And there's no one at 205 besides Ankalaev that I'm like, oh, wow, this guy might really, be a top 10 pound for pound fighter who should absolutely be fighting for the title. So, if there's a time to try, it'd be now. I think it's a win-win situation for the UFC because whoever wins that fight is going to become a bigger star than they were before. Obviously, if Pereira wins, he's a three-weight world champ, which has literally never been done before. And on the Aspinall side, he's got a little bit of a backing from his community, from his crowd. But a win over Pereira, who's becoming a household name in the sport, would do wonders for his career.
Talk a little fighting here with our boy Andrew Gombas, Bets and Picks MMA, joining us here on the BetQL network. BT mentioned there real quick, like Max Holloway has options. What do you think is the best next option for Max Holloway? Because there's a bunch of different ways he could go.
Yeah, it's another really interesting one because there's talk about him going back down to 145 and fighting Ilia Topuria, which, to me is extremely interesting because Max Holloway was known as one of the best featherweights of all time. He really just couldn't get past Volkanovski was his main, his Achilles heel, so to speak. And Topuria, I've been hyping this guy up from the day he got into the UFC. And at 145, there aren't really any clear contenders that should be next outside of Max. So to me, that matchup makes sense. But if I'm Max, I'm like, I just went up to 155 and put on a really, really clean performance, have a lot of momentum there. I actually think 155 is probably better for him at this point in his career, which is something I wouldn't have said 5 years ago. I thought 145 was perfect for him given, his size, his cardio. When he went up against Poirier, he was landing more strikes than Poirier, but the power difference was evident. Now I kind of think at this point in his career, it's a good fit for him at 155, and he has some momentum there. He beat a guy who was a title, who fought for the belt recently, so he could catapult himself into conversations at 155 too. There's certainly some interesting matchups to be made, but either route he takes, I think is going to be a good one for him, which is nice to see because he's obviously like put everything into the sport over the last 10, 15 years and had a lot of ups, but had some downs recently. And over the last few years, he's shown that, just because he couldn't get past the Volkanovski test, that he's not going anywhere. We saw him beat Arnold Allen over 5 rounds. We just saw him, knock Justin Gaethje out. 2 really, really solid guys in their respective divisions. So it's been pretty incredible to see how long he's hung around the top of the sport because a lot of guys don't do that. It comes and goes for a lot of guys. It's hard enough to get on top, but to stay on top is really hard. And, he's been one of the top guys in those middle divisions for a long time now. So I'm looking forward to whatever he does next.
You know who he is, BT? He's Taylor Swift. Like, he's been the man for a long time, but there were a lot of other ones. But now he's got a chance. If he fights for a championship belt next, and then he's got the BMF belt and another belt around his shoulder, he's the biggest dude in the game.
What?
Am I wrong?
What is the Taylor Swift thing? I don't really understand the comparison. When was she not on top?
She wasn't this big. Like, the last couple of years, she's become it. She was always big. But there was the other ones. There was Beyonce. There were other
as a man with a 12-year-old daughter, I could tell you she hasn't had a lot of lulls, dude.
All right. Well, I'll take your word for it. As a guy with no kids, what do you?
For me though, like I guess since we're going to talk about guys who are have longevity to them, Jose Aldo's a dog this week. Do you like his value there as a dog this week against Martinez, or do you like Martinez in this one?
It's a really tough one for me to call. I don't have strong conviction. I kind of lean towards Martinez just because, the age, the activity. Aldo retired a couple years ago. He's coming back now. And obviously Aldo's had an incredible career. It's gone on for a really long time. It's just so rare you see people come back from a retirement and look good, especially, against a guy like Martinez, who isn't an easy matchup for anyone. Yeah, it's a tough one because, in his prime, I think this would be a good fight for Aldo because, it's a striker who's going to look to leg kick battle with someone who historically is one of the all-time great leg kickers. Or should I say was, because, he kind of went away from the leg kicks later in his career, but, prime Aldo had some of the best leg kicks ever. So it's going to be interesting to see if he wants to trade leg kicks, if he, goes back to that style, how he's going to look to mix it up, because Martinez has been looking really good lately. He's been building some momentum. For me, just, the activity of him, I have to lean towards him, even though I do expect it to be a close competitive fight. You never really see someone dominantly outstrike Aldo. And, although Martinez is a good fighter, the people who have outstruck Aldo over like long periods of time would be like a Max Holloway. It hasn't really happened for someone who's not a champion. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of it depends on where Jose Aldo's at. It's really hard for me to tell. I like active fighters. I like activity a lot. I think Martinez is in a good spot. His career trajectory is in obviously a much different place than Aldo's right now. So I'm going to pick him to win, but it's a good fight. I fully expect it to be close.
Speaking of Jose Aldo Jr., we're talking with Andrew Gombas here on the BetQL network. I heard that he fought Conor McGregor one time. Do you think if Conor ends up beating Chandler, back to where I was a couple of minutes ago, I still got it on the mind. Do you think there's any chance that Conor would fight for the belt next? Because that's got to still be Dana's dream somewhere in there.
Yeah, I definitely do.
Really? Okay.
The way they're teeing it up, it's kind of perfect. Makhachev's going to fight Poirier in June, and then McGregor's going to fight Chandler a few weeks later. Obviously, there's a great storyline no matter who wins that Islam versus Poirier fight. I'm not saying that that's the route I would go, or I think that's what should happen, but
Islam's storyline would be nuts with the connection to Khabib, and like that would be the best. It could, because he's already fought Poirier a bunch. Like I'm a little bit over that one.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I think they'd look to make it. They have a built-in, I don't want to say excuse, but a storyline, I guess is a better word, regardless of the Poirier one ended in a leg break, the obviously backstory with the Makhachev and Khabib thing. For me, I mentioned last time that McGregor was the reason I, went from being just like a casual fan to ending up, doing this for a career. And it's tough because he was so good. Like back in the day, I sound old saying that. In his prime, he was so good. One of the pound for pound, guys in the sport at the time. It sucks talking about it in 2024, and he's not even really like a fighter in my eyes anymore. He's more of like a celebrity who used to be a fighter.
Sure.
So it's a little bit of nostalgia talking about him being in the title. It's just weird talking about him in like any title conversation. But to the point I made earlier, like it's not far-fetched, and I actually think that's the route they'll go if he does beat Michael Chandler. It's weird times. I will admit that the sport is better with him in it, even though he's past his prime. It's just tough to watch as like a fan of like the guy, the 2014 to 2017 Conor McGregor, who, took the world by storm, beat a who's who, and elevated mixed martial arts to the next level. But I'll be watching in a couple of months.
I think everybody will be. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'm curious to see what Conor looks like, and all the public money is going to be dumped in on him. So I'll probably put my money on Michael Chandler. When that fight comes around, we will bring you back on.
back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network. Big fight night, UFC 301. And, of course, we also have Canelo Alvarez taking on Jaime Munguia. Coming up here in just a minute, we're going to have Mario Barrios, the Aztec Warrior. He is fighting in the co-main event against Fabian Maidana. And if you look, honestly, tonight, if you look at the odds of this fight night, especially the main card, there is some wide odds. There is not a lot of money to be made on favorites on this card. You go up and down right now. Let me just give you a little peruse quite around where we're at with the favorites in this fight. But you look up and down up until we get to the main event. When you look at the main event, you'll be like, oh, Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia. Kind of reasonable for Canelo if you look at everybody else and where they're at. This is bananas. So Canelo Alvarez in this upcoming matchup against Jaime Munguia. We know that Canelo is coming into tonight, and he is going to be a big favorite, right? He is going to be out there, and he's going to be a minus 550. You can get right now Jaime Munguia about 4-1. That's about where the spot is for him, which is great. You know, if you think there's value in Jaime Munguia, a lot of upsets lately in boxing, I would still be wary of it just because Saul Canelo Alvarez has been, you know, very hard to hurt and an offensive fighter. You're trying to figure out where are the wins there. Could he win a decision? Man, he's going to have to throw a lot. It's really going to be a volume game for Jaime Munguia if he's going to be able to keep up the pace that I think Freddie Roach is going to sit out for him. He was speaking this week in Vegas. I spoke to Oscar De La Hoya about this, who had trained under Freddie Roach, and of course has a lot of venom towards Canelo Alvarez. Some of it might be him selling the fight, but that could just be Oscar De La Hoya. I'm not going to lie. He was a very charming fellow on Radio Row. Should be very exciting. Cannot wait for this. Here is my conversation with tonight's co-main event fighter, the WBC interim welterweight champion, the Aztec Warrior, Mario Barrios. Very excited to talk to our next guest, the champ joining us here, Mario Barrios. Hey, man, it's good to talk to you again. Thank you for joining the show.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Listen, we're going through some heartbreak right now. The Miami Heat season ended this week. You must be absolutely stoked. You have Victor Wembanyama, even though it's tough for your Spurs. How excited is it watching that alien night in and night out?
Oh, man, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane, really, how, I don't know too much about basketball, but it kind of seems like, like he could do it all. And then especially with his size, like, man, he could shoot threes. He shot it from, like, half court. He's a very agile player. He's very smooth with it. So, we're very high on him right now in San Antonio.
Man, you've been on the biggest stages before already. You've headlined monster pay-per-views and all that. You've won championships. Is there a different kind of buzz the Cinco de Mayo Canelo card weekend? Are you excited to be part of something like this?
Oh, absolutely, man. Just being a brown kid from San Antonio, who I started boxing at the East Side Boys and Girls Club, back home, and now I'm co-main on the Canelo card here in Vegas and at the T-Mobile Arena on Cinco de Mayo weekend. It's hard to really put it all into words, but just overall, I'm grateful. I think, I'm only getting these opportunities, because of the work I've been putting in. So that's also very, very motivating.
Yeah, you put in a lot of work. You're entertaining as hell. Everybody loves it. I don't think it's possible for you to be in a boring fight. Have you ever thought about? Has anybody ever tried to change that in you, or do they know better to be like, hey, that's just who the Aztec Warrior is. He's gonna go out there. He's gonna put on a show on the ring, walk out. He's gonna look incredible, and then the fight's gonna be incredible.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's gonna be any change in that. In my lifetime, I'm always gonna go in there, try to give fans an exciting fight. I go in there with the intentions, to box smart, be on the outside, try not to get hit. But usually, only takes me getting clipped like once or twice, where I'm like, all right, this, we're gonna make it out.
Is that do your coaches ever try and hone that back on you, or in the because you fight how you fight, right? That's got to be an instinct thing. That's got to be a tough thing
to change, even though I know you have like a game plan for everything, but just like when those things flip, they flip.
Yeah, no, my team already knows it. So, like I said, we usually go in there with the game plan, like box smart, just they would like me, to finish the fight as pretty as possible. But they also know the type of fighter that I am. So, I mean, of course, we always drill, like the inside work also, because they know it'll only take, so much to get me in there. So they're going to prepare me, to fight on the inside as well as best as I can.
What do you think of Maidana? Obviously, big name in the lineage of that family. Does that stuff matter to you? You feel like you're going to expose them? Like, what do you feel of this matchup coming up here?
I think it definitely matters. I mean, because he's been the brother that's kind of been in his big brother's shadows. He's looking for that breakout performance like himself, and now he has this big opportunity. So I have no doubt I'm in for a fight come Saturday. But I think everything me and my team have been working on. I don't have any doubt in my mind, that we aren't gonna come out victorious.
Is his brother wild like Marcos was? Because his brother was wild. Like, he'd throw punches from everywhere.
Yeah.
You never knew what the hell was going on. I don't think I've seen anybody make Floyd Mayweather's face look that ugly before. So, does he have that, or is it a different style that you prepared for with him?
He brings that same kind of intensity, but he's actually Fabian is a lot better of a boxer. So he's a lot cleaner with his punch selection. He doesn't kind of just like maul you with his body weight. So I mean, it's gonna be interesting. He doesn't have an easy style to fight. So I mean, it's definitely gonna present some issues. But I think, like I said, everything we've been working on, I should be able to start picking them apart, and start finding the openings that I'm looking for, towards the middle and the later rounds.
So obviously everybody's buzzing around this week because of the Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney news. What has been your reaction to this week? Because that was pretty wild that dropped just in the middle of the week, that he popped from the Devin Haney stuff.
That's funny. I was saying the exact same thing yesterday. I was like, I literally saw the polls. I was like, what the hell? But I was like, yeah, of course. I don't know. Ryan's kind of out there right now. He's I don't even know what to make of him. But I mean, anybody that uses PEDs, especially in the combat sports, I think it's f***ed up. Like cheating to get that edge, and kind of just shows more about your character than anything. But of course, he's gonna say he didn't know about it, or they're lies and all that. But yeah,
I don't even know. Yeah, and it's one of these things where, like, what do you do as a guy? Have you felt like when you fought guys like, I think this guy's on something, and then like what do you do as a fighter? Because to a level, like, I know he's gonna go the troll route on it because we know how he uses social media, but there is a level that's like, damn, like Devin Haney had this undefeated record. He took on a guy that blew off the weight class and then maybe was juicing, and now his O's gone and the whole thing changes. So just like being on the end of that, have you ever felt like you fought a dirty fighter, and then like that's gotta, I imagine, piss you off royally if you have?
Oh yeah. I myself have never fought somebody who came out dirty, but I would for sure be pissed off, especially if I was coming off, the first loss of my career. So yeah, if I was Haney, I would for sure be pissed. I think just because of everything too that happened in that fight, But yeah, I don't think it's right. But yeah, we'll see how all of that plays out.
I know you got a fight to focus on, but like just because your paths could cross, like that could be a possibility. What would you feel like about fighting him now? Because obviously, like, the buzz about him is high, so it'd be a big money fight. But knowing, man, this is a wild card. Like, I don't know if he's going to show up on time. Is he going to show up on weight? Like, does this give you any pause, or would you put in like stipulations? Like, how would you go about it, or would you just jump at it and you would do your Aztec Warrior stuff and just whoop on it?
I would definitely like jump on it. I still think it's a big opportunity, but for sure, like, man, I would require. Me and my team would require testing, way beforehand, and then, and then if he was a pop dirty, way before, then like, yeah, that fight ain't gonna happen.
Before we get you out of here, Mario Barrios joining us here. He's going to be fighting Fabian Maidana, co-main event here live on pay-per-view. Canelo Alvarez, Jaime Munguia, the main event. Do you feel like Jaime has a shot? The odds say he does not, but he is a he's like, front foot guy, will come after you, ferocious. What do you think of his chances against Canelo?
I think he actually has really good chances. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. He's young. He's actually a really big dude. Me and him were at the gym yesterday. Putting in a workout together. Kind of like we just happened, to be there at the same time. He's a big dude though, a lot bigger than Canelo. So he has the size, he has the youth, and he has that come forward, like that Mexican warrior style. So I mean, I think he's gonna surprise a lot of people, but I think ultimately Canelo's experience is just gonna start taking over in those later rounds, much like how when Canelo fought Mayweather, when he was really young.
What about your fight? I mean, you and Maidana, I know you prepare for everything, but like when you picture this fight in your ideal way, how do you picture getting the victory?
Any way possible, really. Like I said, I'm gonna go in there, try to fight smart, try to work on, what we've been working on in the boxing gym. But I have no doubt, at some point I'm gonna say F it and then just start trying to bang it out with him. Because like I said, I mean, I know he's coming with it and he has a lot to prove. What
do you got up your sleeve for the intro? Like, you always have sick walks. Like, what's up the sleeve this week?
I'm definitely bringing bringing the culture in with me. We're gonna have the danzantes and but yeah, the intro is always always one of my favorite parts. It always gets me very, very pumped up, because it's a ring entrance that you're not only watching but you feel it, and like it's definitely something I feel whenever I'm walking out.
It's always a thrill watching you fight, man. I always appreciate you giving us some time. Mario Barrios, thank you for joining the show, man, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, man. It's always a pleasure to be on.
Step into the cage with Brendan Tobin in Are You Gonna Fight Me?
I'm gonna fight your ass!
Here on Tapped Out.
That's right, fight me like a man.
Only on the BetQL network.
You know the rules. I want a good, clean fight. When I tell you to break, I want you to step back up my command and break. Now go back to the corner and come out fighting at the bell.
Welcome back into the show. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine Sean Levine, friends turn foes in a segment called You Gonna Fight Me? I don't know how, but somehow Demetrius Johnson just got his black belt, like literally yesterday. DJ just got his black belt. To me, no doubt, he's got to be the best flyweight of all time. You gonna fight me?
Nah, I've told you this. It's cool that the flyweight got a little bit of a resurgence with Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, and those guys did. I'm not knocking anything that they've done, but man, I would have loved to see Demetrius Johnson get another run in the UFC. Thankfully, it seems like he's got everything put together well at one and has a nice, media career going for himself. But no, bar none, he's the best. He is. It's impossible for you not to think of anybody else.
Triple C. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe Henry Cejudo.
Nah, no.
All right. Well, at least you entertained it. Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa are going at it coming up at UFC 302. I was thinking, all right, I got to lay down some heavy money on this one. I think the most likely outcome is Sean Strickland wins by decision. You going to fight me?
No, I'm not going to fight you just because I just, I think it's been a while since we've seen Paulo Costa, be a guy who we all thought could be a real contender. Hasn't gotten a win since beating Luke Rockhold, I believe. Where
he's super overrated. Let's just call it what it is. Like, he looks the part. He's fought for the belt before, but what has he really done? I know you're looking at his history right now. On top of my head, got his ass kicked against Israel Adesanya, had the super highlight that grossed you out against Luke Rockhold,
really
got
gross.
Beat up a couple of times in between, like missed a couple of fights. What has this guy done?
Yeah, I would say probably the highest highlight of his career is probably beating Uriah Hall.
He's Johnny Walker, dude.
Yeah, I would say even Johnny.
Cool.
He does look cool. But I think with Sean, yeah, Sean's been there. We've already just saw him. Look, Sean's got an argument to say, like, hey, I got a little bit hosed out of my belts. So I think that Sean, we've just seen have more success lately. Now we've seen him go in there and have success against like the top guys for the belt. He looked the way he did against Israel Adesanya. Paulo Costa didn't look competitive against Israel Adesanya, not to just, put MMA math out there, but that's just the truth. And, Sean, I think is definitely right there on the cusp of getting right back in there. So yeah, I think Sean by decision is the best way to go. He definitely usually wins by decision. So that's probably a smart path to go.
You say on the cusp of fighting for another championship. We got Izzy going at it with Dricus Du Plessis. So I assume if Sean Strickland wins this fight, then he just waits and he takes on the winner of that one for the belt, right?
I would think so. He's the number one guy right now.
And like you said, when he lost the belt, it's not like he got his ass whooped. It was a close fight.
No, and then, we have the only thing that I guess we could look at and say is Whitaker. If, even though Whitaker's lost to both guys, he's fighting Hamzat. So most likely if Hamzat wins, they might want to vault him in there because they're dying to, I think, get a belt around Hamzat's waist. But yeah, that's if he's going to be fighting for the belt, does that mean that Robert Whitaker's just ruled out because he has losses against these guys? It's hard to say, but I think for right now, yeah, Sean's right there. If it's not going to be the winner of that fight, then he's next.
You mentioned the Hamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whitaker fight. Somehow that's not a pay-per-view. That's a fight night coming up on June 22nd, which is nuts. Like, think about what we have coming up tonight for a pay-per-view. And I don't want to disrespect, but at the top of the marquee is Pantoja versus Usyk. Who? What? Really?
Yeah.
You're telling me that on a fight night, we're going to get Hamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whitaker? You're going to fight me if I say, I think the most likely outcome of that one, and you know how much I love me some Robert Whitaker, I bet he gets ragdolled around that octagon, man.
I don't know, man. I'm a bit of a Hamzat hater. I'll admit it.
Yeah, you are.
I'm a little bit of a Hamzat hater. Doesn't make weight. Wasn't really that impressed with his quote unquote signature wins against Usman because Usman took that on like 2 seconds notice and first
Actually,
fight
I'm with
ever
you
at
there.
middleweight.
I was more impressed with Usman in a loss than I was with Chimaev winning that fight.
Yeah, I mean,
and now that you bring it up, he didn't
about his
dominate
last
your boy Gilbert Burns either.
Well, let's think about his last 3 fights. All right, let's be honest about this. All right, so Usman, he got on 3 seconds notice, right?
Right. Yeah.
Usman's debut at middleweight. The fight before that's Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland beat him up, but okay, that was bull bleep. I mean, he got a perfect signature, perfect stylistic matchup at catchweight. I understand, but like he didn't even make weight. I'm not gonna give him credit. He didn't even make weight for that fight. He weighed 100. What did he weigh? 183 pounds for a welterweight fight.
So he missed it by 7 or 8 pounds between friends.
And then the Gilbert Burns fight. I mean, like Gilbert Burns had, some would argue Gilbert had better moments in that fight than he has. So, dude, what are we going back to Fight Island before this guy was some boogeyman? I'm talking 3 years ago. Yeah, I'm a bit of a Hamzat hater. I'm sorry. Maybe he'll be good. Maybe he will be the champion one day. But Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, I'm sorry, man. I'm not ruling him out of a win at all.
Wow, all 3 judges are saying you 10-8 me in that round. All right, fine. You're right. Finally, it's about time. We've been doing this show for 3 years, damn it. If I'm right, so let's just humor it for a second. Do you think there's a chance that Robert Whittaker would lay down the gloves? That guy's been fighting for a long time.
If he loses?
Actually, just no matter what, because it feels like to me he's getting toward the end. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I just feel like every time we do this with him, I think we've seen some comebacks. He's only 33 years old. So he'll be 34, not till December. Okay, so
he's not old.
Still in the midst of it. Dude, he's lost to Israel Adesanya in the current champ.
Oh,
so
it's
he's
not
lost.
that. It's not his resume. It's the mileage, right? Because he's been in the game. Look at all the fights he has. Like if you've got his resume pulled up, this guy's and he used to fight 3, if not 4 times a year. He's not quite as active over the last couple of years. But when he was Robert Whittaker, the champion, right? When he had those matchups. You think about like the Joe Romero, and that's a long time ago now.
Yeah, the Ultimate Fighter, that was 2012 that he was there.
It's a long time.
But look what we're seeing lately with guys who have been around a while. Like look at Dustin and look at Max Holloway. These guys have been around a while. Hell, Jose Aldo's still kicking it. I would be surprised. I would be surprised unless he gets just absolutely obliterated in the fight. That would be a talking point for him. Because he's still good enough. He's just a little bit in the Max Holloway paradox of like you need somebody who you haven't lost to have the championship just to get back in the talks for the championship. That's what the issue is right now. It's not that he's not a contender. It's just that like, okay, you've lost to Izzy and you've lost to DDP.
I like the Max comparison. I love the Poirier comparison. Like I think Poirier and Robert Whittaker have had extremely similar careers. If you look at their resumes and how long they've been in the game and where they are at this point in their careers and when they've had the belt and who they've had to face, like both those guys, if you're trying to rank them all time, it'd kind of be tough. I'd put Poirier slightly ahead when it comes to resume, but again, both these guys still could be champions as we're talking about going forward. Speaking of could be champion, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler go at it coming up on June 29th. You're going to fight me if I say, I'm starting to think if McGregor wins, he's going to fight for the championship next. Because Dana White would love nothing more than that. You going to fight me?
No, I'm not going to fight you on that. I think, what do you think is more likely? Do you think there's anything to these like 165 belt rumors, or do you think that it's all just internet fodder? So like I've had to tell you what was more likely.
I don't want there to be a belt on the line. Basically, what you're saying is if they make a 165 for the Chandler McGregor fight specifically, there'd be a belt on the line. Hell no. I don't want him to become champion that way and then grab the belt and say, surprise, surprise. No, dude. Like, I need at least 2 fights for you to be champion again, Connor.
I agree. I think that I was just curious if you had any interest in that at all. Because, I can see them. You could definitely see them weaseling in something there. That is a boxing move. That's like when the WBC shows up every week and they're like, hey, we have a Cinco de Mayo belt just so they can be seen. If you're
gonna do something goofy like that, then go all out and make it a tournament. Give me 4 guys. You know what I mean? Like give me 4. Throw a Poirier in there. I don't care, whoever wants to be in that one. Nate Diaz, welcome him back. and have all four of those guys go at it, 2 fights each, and the winners go at it for the belt. But nah, that makes me a little sick to my stomach to think that there'd actually be a belt on the line for that.
Your boy Charlie Olives revealed this week that he's the backup for that. You inch more in that fight than you would be the actual fight? Like, if you had your wherewithal, would you rather see Conor fight Oliveira, or do you prefer where it's at right now? Yeah.
I prefer where it's at right now. I mean, McGregor and Michael.
Is it because it's more competitive? Because you feel like Charles
exactly.
Oliveira would kill him?
It's not even that. It's more, I'm waiting for both these guys to meet with everything they have in the first round, the same way that Michael Chandler has his entire career, the same way that Conor McGregor has his entire career. Like, if this thing gets to the third, I'm going to be absolutely stunned. Conor said before, it will be done in one, and I tend to agree with him. I'm not saying he's going to win the fight, but somebody's going to have the other guy done in one. Like, we're talking about two of the most aggressive fighters on the entire roster. And let's face it, McGregor doesn't want this thing to get into deep water. He's terrible when the third round and on. McGregor's not even an average fighter at that point. He's great in the first couple of rounds. Ask Jose Aldo.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I wonder with Conor, though, is you do have to wonder a little bit, is there going to be an element to him that's just going to want to now maybe Michael Chandler won't let him, but when you have an injury like that, is there going to be part of him that's going to want to kind of feel things out?
Maybe Michael Chandler won't let him. That's like being like, well, maybe the cheetah will let the rabbit like feel him out a little bit. Of course he's going to go right after him. He's Michael Chandler. What are you talking about?
I'm just wondering. I'm wondering with Conor if it's like, is he going to find a way to try and keep the distance and give himself some space and some reach on this so he can just test out the leg. And I understand, like, he's training. It's not like this is the first time he's ever going to do it, but I think it is different under the stress of the bright lights.
Joe Rogan said that the BMF knockout was the greatest of all time. Now, he kind of said that in the moment, and he's been asked afterwards, and he's stuck with it. You're going to fight me if I say that's crazy in hindsight. Like, I can think of better knockouts. You got to think of Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. I would put Ronda Rousey getting knocked out by Holly Holm. I would put the Leon Edwards putting Usman to sleep. I mean, even back in the day, you think about a knockout like when Hendo knocked out Bisping. I mean, we're talking about greatest knockouts of all time. The timing was awesome with 1 second left. It was the BMF fight, which everybody was looking forward to. It was the biggest card at UFC 300. So the stage was huge. But to call it the biggest knockout, the best knockout of all time, that's kind of silly.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's silly. I think that I agree that he's maybe caught up in the moment of it because of the guy who did it, the guy that he did it to, the stage that it was at. Like, hard to argue that a fight that was that anticipated on a card like that would have an ending that even exceeded everybody else's expectations. But yeah, probably would say for Max Holloway, for a lot of his career, before that, you would say the signature moment was winning the championship, but even before that, it's probably him screaming with Calvin Kattar that he's the best boxer. And then, he did this against Ricardo Lamas, just didn't end the way that did. So this is definitely the crowning achievement of Max Holloway's career. Best knockout ever. It's so strange to me because I think of like sometimes devastating knockouts and you're just like, man, like I think like Francis versus Overeem, right?
Oh, dude, he broke him.
Like that was crazy what he was able to do to him. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm.
How about Vicky Boy versus Overeem?
Yeah. Busted his face. Yeah. But I think if you want to talk stakes, the style that it happened in, which was just a melee throwdown, it's up there, man. It definitely, it's definitely up there. I don't think anything is like nothing's going to top that this year. And we got a lot of year to go. I can't imagine anything is going to top that.
Well, if somebody asked you, stop you on the street, and they're like, "Aren't you Brendan Tobin? Don't you host that UFC show?" Dude, what's your favorite knockout of all time? And you'd have a bunch of time. You're with your kids, whatever, trying to go to the park, be a good dad. What's your answer?
Man, there's some crazy ones. The most stunning ones both involve Usman because him knocking out Masvidal getting knocked out for the first time was pretty stunning. And then him losing to Leon Edwards. Those are the ones that like always come to mind. Those are the ones that have come to mind because we would just be talking about them like crazy. We were doing the show too, so like that adds to it, I guess. But
I can't believe you brought up your boy George Masvidal and didn't say would he need Ben Askren in the face.
That's a crazy knockout too, for sure. But that is, that one's like.
And how much you always talk about McGregor knocking out Aldo.
That's good too. See, there's a lot of good knockouts. There's a lot of good knockouts. There are. Hey, listen, it's a great sport. There's a lot of good knockouts, dude.
It really is. It's a great sport.
It's a great sport.
Coming up next, we keep talking about the sport we love, and we try to make a little bit of money together right here on the BetQL Network.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
And welcome back into Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network. Going to continue here in just a second with CEO of Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellerbe. Really brilliant boxing mind. Has obviously been around some of the biggest events in the sport with Floyd Mayweather and all those events. And, of course, was there with Canelo Alvarez, as you'll hear upcoming here in our conversation with him, when Canelo was very, very young. And that's apparently where he says their relationship started off and where they got to do some business together. So you'll see Leonard. He'll connect guys around in the boxing game, and obviously never one to shy away from too many opinions. I will say this has been a wild fight week this entire time. The scene weigh-in day was pretty crazy because you were wondering, there's a lot of hub and scuttle around the whole building because De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez going at it with one another. They at one point had to separate the room because Oscar De La Hoya was doing media rounds, and he joined me on my local radio show with my guy Leroy Horde. And De La Hoya was explaining, where the beef comes from between these two guys, but also had talked about where things are with Ryan Garcia, which Leonard didn't really want to get into that specifically because he didn't have the details or whatever. But I will say, to cross over our sports here, because we cover both here on Tapped Out between MMA and boxing, Ryan Garcia has obviously been dealing with a lot as far as, bad PR since the whole pop test has come back. And that's not to be unexpected after what had happened. But the funny thing about this is he had gotten a pretty strong reaction that surprised me from Conor McGregor. Now, reason being this surprised me was because, if you guys remember, Conor McGregor was at the Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight when Ryan Garcia lost. And Conor McGregor had come back into the locker room and had given words of encouragement to Ryan Garcia. It was like, hey, keep it up. I'd love to see it again. And so you were like, oh, it's kind of cool of Conor McGregor. He's not he's trying to lift the spirits. He's been there before. He's lost some tough, big headline fights. And he just completely obliterated him on social media to this whole situation. And let me get the tweet here for you just so I can get what he said, because Ryan has responded. So Conor McGregor, he said, cheated the weight and was juiced. Lifetime ban. Sad to see and sad to say. Sad and a bit sick. Don't come near me if I ever see you, Ryan Garcia. I'm absolutely disgusted. This Austrian reminds me of Sean O'Malley that he was on as well. I don't like this. I'll bust yous both up. Do yous want to spar? I will set the flights right now for both of you. Full-on spar each. Hotel, Black Fortune at the lot. The two little Austrian heads. I'll ride you both like ostriches. What do you think you are at? If you're Haney's dad, you're dead no matter what for doing that. Crazy. What the F happened, you little fool? Get your head together, because I'm going to smash you with elbows if you don't. Fair play, Devin. Well done. Your performance just became even more heroic. Bravo. Get your head together or kill yourself. I don't really understand what the hell is going on with Conor McGregor. I'm going to say, to be honest with you, we've seen Conor go a little bit crazy with the tweeting. He did delete this, but Ryan Garcia did respond. And he said, if I see Conor McGregor, I'm going to break your weak-ass ankle. You ran from being tested because you were on roids. Roadhouse or roid rage? Fudge Conor, caca brain. Very mature from Ryan Garcia in this whole situation. But it is pretty hilarious to see now one of the biggest boxing stars, and of course Conor, biggest UFC star there is, have this feud because it seemed like they were cool. And I gotta say, with Ryan Garcia, I'm a little bit on his side here because it is very fishy, the whole comeback of Conor, what happened with USADA, all of that stuff. Definitely felt like something was going on. I don't know what. I'm kind of like, you'll hear from Leonard Ellerbe here in a second. I don't have all the facts. We don't have all the facts. That's fair. But I think that I don't know how good a character benefit of the doubt guy Ryan Garcia makes for. So this is a tough situation to kind of cut up, dive into, and figure out where things stand. But I do know two guys who can absolutely fire off tweets with the best of them. Some of the best thumbs in the game with with Conor McGregor and Ryan Garcia. I don't feel this is the last of the beef that we're going to hear from. But one man we're going to hear from right now is the CEO of Mayweather Promotions. He's been around all fight week. Relationship with Canelo. We talk a lot of things in the boxing landscape with the great Leonard Ellerbe here on Tapped Out on the BetQL Network.
Thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
It's a true pleasure. Canelo Alvarez fight weeks. You've been amongst the biggest of them with Floyd Mayweather. But is there a different vibe with the Canelo fight week that you find?
Well, again, he is a iconic figure in boxing and has been for quite some time. This is huge for his country, Mexico. It's huge. This is Mexico versus Mexico. You got Jaime Munguia, a young fighter who's on the rise, who's looking to knock off the king of Mexico. And we know that he's going to be bringing everything come Saturday night. In Canelo's case, he's been the guy. He's been that guy out there who's been the face of the country, who's been on a roll for quite some time. He's fought everybody, over the last couple decades. And this is a huge fight, a huge fight. And the last thing Canelo wants to do is to be dethroned by the young guy.
Yeah. I was watching the countdown to all of it, and they threw back to when he fought Floyd, and just at such a young age. But what do you think? Do you think back to that Canelo fight and think oh, he was going to have this reign of success from that lesson that was that night?
Yeah, and actually, I that's where kind of me and Canelo's relationship kind of first started. I've told a couple people this story. After it was post-fight, maybe Wednesday, I normally stick around here in the MGM, just handling business after the fights. And I saw him. We were upstairs, and we both got on the elevator, the private elevator. And, he had on a hoodie, and he kind of was just coming the elevator. He was with one of his guys. And I looked, and I didn't know if that was him at first, because when he got on, he just kind of just went in the corner. I looked and went over, man, pick your head up. You ain't got nothing to put your head down. You've just fought the best fighter in the world, and you came up short. And I understand that you're disappointed, but you will learn from this. There's no shame in losing to Floyd Mayweather. Pick your head up. And I know you probably feel as though you let your country down, but no. And this will be something, an experience that you have went through that will benefit you in the long run. And sure enough, you look at his career post the Floyd Mayweather fight. He learned so much from that fight. That's why he's fought every style there is in boxing. And that's why come Saturday night, Jaime Munguia is in for a rude awakening.
I'm curious, I feel like you always, stick up for your fighters as you're one to do. But yesterday at the press conference, there's, the tension between him and Oscar De La Hoya from their past. What did you make of that whole thing? Is it just, was it surprising to you at all?
No, not at all. Not at all. Oscar had this plan for however long. You see, he had a speech, all put together. As opposed to most people could just react, to what's going on. There's nothing wrong with having a prepared statement at all, but again, he wanted to kind of shake things up a little bit. And there's definitely been tension between those two because they have a history together. Yes, he did start out at Golden Boy Promotions from the beginning of his career. But I think you got to give the credit to his team meaning Oscar's team.
Yeah.
You got to give guys like Richard Schaefer, Eric Gomez, Robert Diaz, and his staff, the people behind the scenes who were, helping putting together their events and stuff. You got to give them the credit because they were actually doing the day-to-day stuff, the nuts and bolts. Oscar didn't do any of that. He wasn't even around half the time.
Yeah, it's like you would think a guy who's, as iconic as him, people would want to look up, but it does feel like a lot of his fighters get frustrated with him.
Well, I can't really speak on what they got going on, and I just know I don't like him. I just know that I don't like him. And I have my own reasons why I don't like him, and that's that, And it's kind of been I'm not the only one who feels that way. So, again, he's doing his thing, and that's what it is.
Jaime McGee is, buzzing around here. Everybody's got all the cameras in it. When you see a guy step into the big stage, they got to fight a Floyd Mayweather or a Tank or a Canelo. How hard is that, do you think, for these young up-and-coming stars? Maybe they've main evented events, but can you speak to, I guess, just the different level of like a world-watching event and what they have to deal with that?
Yeah, and don't be surprised if when he's in that tunnel and he hears the fans, a packed arena, and he hears the fans and he realizes that this is his moment, we're going to see how he responds, because he's never seen nothing like what he's about to face on Saturday night.
What has been your reaction to the whole Ryan Garcia positive test news that came in the middle of this week?
I really don't have a reaction because I don't have all the information, and I'm not one to jump out there and speak on something that I don't know nothing about.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because it's like we don't know with these supplements or these tests or any of these things, but it does feel like with dealing with this in boxing and your fighters, how much of a concern is that stuff to make sure that these guys, I guess, are clean or on the level and all that stuff?
Well, I can only speak of the major events that I've been involved in. Yeah. We've made it a point to have extensive testing, and sometimes there are adverse findings and things like this, and as a promoter you have to deal with them. Again, that's why I don't want to prematurely jump out there and give an opinion on something I don't have all the information on.
No.
Because that would be irresponsible on my part. I know that there's an adverse finding in what is publicly been said, but I haven't seen or heard of what the B sample is. And, I'm just hearing just like you guys, so I'm not going to just prematurely jump out there and just trash the guy without having all the information.
When you, I remember that was kind of like a big thing back with, the Floyd and Manny buildup was like forever. That was like always a chapter, like, oh, you're on this, you're on that. If you think a guy is maybe do it, like, what are the precautions? Like, is it just the testing
I can't speak on the Floyd Manny thing because I was involved.
Yeah.
Okay. We could not agree to the drug testing. That side, they wanted a cutoff. So let's be clear about that.
Okay.
Okay. They agreed that, yeah, let's do testing, but they wanted a cutoff. Okay. Why do you want a cutoff? And after that cutoff date, you can't test no more. Why? And we said no. Floyd was very adamant. If it's a level playing field, yeah, we're going to do it. But other than that, no. What do you need a cutoff for?
How much back and forth was there on that? Like, do you remember how long?
No, it wasn't.
Or just was a one-time, like, no, and that's it?
Yeah, we couldn't get past that. So we're not putting our guy in there with the unknown. And our guy wouldn't do it anyway. He wouldn't do it anyway. What would we want to put someone in a situation like that where there's an uneven playing field? Your health is more important than anything.
Leonard Ellerbe, I appreciate you stopping by. We got a great pay-per-view coming up. Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia. What do you think for a guy, just before we get you out of here, Canelo Alvarez, undisputed champion. He's gone up in weight. Like, what do you think? It was interesting hearing him say, like, I don't know. I take this fight by fight. Maybe I want to do 10 more. Maybe this will be my last one. Who knows? But as a guy who's known him for a long time, what do you think still ticks for him? Like, what do you think of the things that he interests him left for legacy?
Man, come Saturday night, we gonna see the old Canelo where he wants to make a big statement. And I think that he's really motivated because, again, this is for all the marbles. This is for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world, and his entire country is going to be watching, and the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people around the world will also be tuned in. You're going to have a sold-out arena come Saturday night. And, again, he wants to put on an impressive performance. I know that for a fact.
We appreciate you, Leonard. Thank you so much for giving us some time.
And we want to tell the fans, be sure to order right now. Don't wait. And remember, there is the 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time start time.
Thanks for the time, Leonard. Thank you.
All right, boss man.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
And wrapping things up here on the show, we appreciate you checking us out this Saturday night. That's BT on the Sports Machine and you here for this final segment. Let's talk some boxing, where tonight we got the big one. Canelo Alvarez puts his belt on the line versus Jaime Munguia. Right now, man, if you want a Canelo Alvarez, you got to pay a lot of money. Like minus 600 odds at BetMGM. I'm starting to look at that underdog and remember what's happened the last couple of weeks and be like, dude, that 4-1 looks pretty good. And then I don't need to figure out if he's going to knock him out or if it's going to go to the cards. I just need Munguia to win the fight. I think I'm going to take it.
I honestly can't blame you, just because it has been a pretty wild time. I've seen Tyson Fury get knocked to the deck by a UFC champion. I've seen Ryan Garcia troll everybody. Boxing's in a wild time right now. Boxing's in a fun time right now with everything that it's going through. And there's definitely value. There's value to be had if there can be upsets. So I'm not hating on you for doing it. I'm gonna go with Canelo to win by KO. That's at 2-1 right now. So that's what I'm hoping for, just because I think Canelo is buying a little bit into Jaime Munguia being affected by the bright lights. Saw him on Radio Row this week, man. Like, and everybody's like, oh, Munguia's following, gets everybody there. And it's cute to be like main events for like your little local card. But when it's like, oh, the world comes in to see you, I think it is a different expectation. And also it's like, hey, this guy is the icon of your country. There's another element to that. Cinco de Mayo weekend. How does he handle all of that? I think he can have moments in this fight, but I do think that there'll be a little bit of a deer in headlights moment, or maybe if he's not able to put Canelo away, a wear down from Jaime Munguia. He's a talented fighter. He's not a perfect fighter. There's certainly been flawed performances in his career too. So I think he really has to hurt with Canelo with something. And Canelo, for all the criticism he can take for maybe opponent picking or the losses to talented boxers or near losses to talented boxers, one thing you can say about Canelo Alvarez, the dude has an iron, and I mean an iron chin. It is very, very hard to legitimately hurt this man. You could outbox him, but could you hurt him? And Jaime Munguia is going to have success by hurting his opponents. I don't think he can do that to Canelo. And so that's why I think once he realizes he can't, there's going to be a wear down effect and he'll get stopped. Like I said, probably sometime after the 8th round.
We'll move on to the UFC, but just quickly, has he ever been hurt in a fight, Canelo? I know he got beat up by Bivol and he's lost fights.
I think Cotto's brother had like a moment where he buckled him, but he's never been down. He's obviously never been knocked out. Only got the 2 losses. Now, look, again, there's been controversial losses in his career to Gennady Golovkin, or controversial wins, I should say, where Gennady Golovkin got the nod, where people thought Gennady Golovkin should have gotten the nod, or Erislandy Lara should have gotten the nod, or situations like that. But no, those guys typically just box his socks off, and and you're left being like, well, how did Canelo get that victory? But a guy like Munguia is at his best when he can hurt his opponents and finish his opponents. That's a big ask, and I just can't see him winning a decision against Canelo. That seems a little crazy.
Hey, he's knocked out 34 dudes, so we know he does have the power. Can he knock out Canelo? That's a little different. Other thing
that before we move on to this week with Oscar De La Hoya too.
Oh yeah,
we Oscar De La Hoya and
I thought they
Canelo
were going to fight on the stage.
I thought they were too. It was the day before I got down here. But I wish I was there for that day. Like I was like, oh, should have come in a day earlier to see the chaos, because it looked like Canelo wanted to kill him.
How old's De La Hoya? Like mid-50s? If he would have fought Canelo before the fight, his old guy, as he just said, put some respect on my name, like that would have been as cool as when Jorge Masvidal fought Kamaru Usman at Super Bowl Radio Row.
It was wild. And like, it's interesting because, Canelo talks about how mad he is that he stole money from him and all that. It's almost weird that Jaime Munguia got the fight, because I know everybody's saying, well, Jaime Munguia is going to, get punished because Canelo's now motivated. I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of mutual respect between these guys. But why Oscar De La Hoya would even poke the bear like that? Like, let your guy fly under there, but he can't help himself. Like, that's the thing with him. He just can't help himself. He's got, people around here say that Golden Boy Boxing has a great team around Oscar De La Hoya and all that, but how he's able to always stick his beak into the business of this stuff is crazy that he was able to do that.
Him and Dana, I know they hate each other. They kind of have that in common, though. Super stubborn. Like, always willing to kind of duck in, and I appreciate it as a promoter. Like, I like it. It makes it a little bit more interesting. All right, speaking of Dana White, UFC 301, well, you couldn't have expected a great card, right? Because UFC 300 was the best, at least on paper, combat sports card that I've ever seen. So at the top of this one, in Rio tonight, we've got Alex Pantoja, his belt on the line, minus 185 favorite, against Steve Erceg. And if you're like, who? I don't blame you. He's a plus 150 underdog. He's only been in the promotion for 5 minutes. He's had 3 fights in the UFC. He's got 2 by decision, 1 by knockout. It's kind of like he was the last guy standing, process of elimination. All right, and not to talk any smack on him. He's a fun fighter to watch. He is Astro Boy. I don't think he can win this fight. It's
funny. I remember I was at a Heat game, I think, or Heat lost. They're out of the season is done. What game was I at? It was so it was against Utah. Actually, one of Jimmy Butler's better performances of the year, which actually makes me even sadder. But I was like, oh, who's this Steve Erceg? And I saw his knockout against Max Schnell. And I was like, oh. But I didn't think to myself, because I think that opened up. It was the Rosenstrike card. And I was like, oh, he's going to be fighting for the championship next. And I just didn't think it was going to get turned around like that. But here he is. Good for him. And there's some value at it. I mean, like, if you think that knockout power is going to carry over to Pantoja, but it just feels like Pantoja has been on a roll as far as like where he's at right now, and this little run that he's on. I don't know if I got the stones to pick against him.
The way you said Erceg versus Schnell, man.
Schnell, dude.
I find that so funny. Hey, look who's on the card. The greatest featherweight of all time. The king of Rio is back. Jose Aldo Jr. And what? He's an underdog? Is this right? At BetMGM? Plus 125.
Heated stare down this week, too.
It was a good one. Jonathan Martinez is the favorite at minus 150. I get it. Aldo's old. He's also at home where he's usually great. You know what I'm doing? Jose Aldo Jr. by knockout. Where's your money going?
Can't even hate on it. I mean, that'd be a really cool moment. By the way, did you see, so this is, I got to say, in the show's history, probably our favorite argument, greatest featherweight of all time. Did you see that Alexander Volkanovski endorsed Jose Aldo as greatest featherweight of all time? Even still,
Aldo, Volkanovski, Max, Connor, Uriah Faber.
It's kind of weird, though. You would admit, like, having a list with the guy behind 2 of those guys that he won against. It's a little weird.
It is. That's weird. That's
just saying.
Remember,
like,
I created a list back in the day.
I just understand, but you would understand why it's a little bit okay. Just want to make sure. Just want to make sure.
So you like Aldo? You gonna trail me on this one?
Absolutely not. No, I'm going with Jonathan Martinez.
Oh, what a jerk. Paul Craig, he's a Bear Jew, plus 450 against wow, Chao Barajo, minus 650. Why is he such a heavy favorite? That's crazy.
I mean, because Barrios hasn't lost in how long?
It's been a while. I was just looking at his record, but Paul Craig's always he's always a dog too. I've gotten paid so many times Paul Craig underdog money. You don't think I'll do it again tonight? Watch me. Plus 450. That's nuts. Our boy,
he's lost 3 out of 4 though.
That's all right. I'm not worried about it. Anthony Smith. Wow, he's a big underdog too against Victor Petrino tonight. You got to pay minus 550 for the favorite. Lionheart's 4-1. We don't bet against Lionheart on this show, do we? Not at those odds.
Pretty sure I did last time.
Did you really?
Yeah, he lost to Khalil Roundtree.
Well, sometimes you got to make some money, even if it is a friend of the show. And then
he was really nice, though. Nice
really
guy.
Nice. Really cool. Gave us like a 30-minute interview. We told him we'd keep him 15. Great guy.
He was bored, though. Like, he didn't have anything to do that week.
Pereira and Potoria. How do I say his name? Ihor Potieria.
Yes.
All right, thank you. God bless you. He's the plus 500 underdog. Lots of money to be made on the dogs in this fight. Minus 700 for Pereira. And then UFC St. Louis, by the way, I'll be there coming up right around the corner. The main event in that one is the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, minus 165. I feel like I have to publicly apologize for saying a few months ago, it's been like a year now, that I don't think Derek Lewis should ever headline a card again. And now I'm going to make the 4.5-hour drive from Kansas City to go see the Black Beast. He better win and do that Orca thing. If I'm making the drive, going to the Arch, he better win the fight.
Look, he's a fan favorite. That's what you have him there for. Have the Black Beast on tour. Go see him at St. Louis to do the Orca. That's what he's there for, dude. So I don't know why we would ever quibble with the idea of him still ticking, still getting big headline cards, because quite frankly, if he wins, it's going to be an awesome knockout and he's going to do a hilarious interview. So what's the downside? Oh, because he's not going to be champion? Who cares? He's the people's champion.
As long as he takes his shorts off. I feel weird saying that about another man, but I want to see it inside the octagon. Say something funny. Do that Orca dance. Knock out somebody. It'll be worth the drive. Your boy Alonzo Menifield's also on that card. I know you like making money off him, and he's a dog at plus 170. We'll talk all about that and more, of course, coming up next week. Thank you to all of our guests that joined us on the show this week, and for you for checking it out. For our producer, Jake Noviker, and my co-host, that is Brendan Tobin. I'm a sports machine, Sean Levine, and we'll talk to you next week right here. It's Tapped Out on the BetQL Network. Good night.